Due to the graphic nature of its content, listener discretion is advised.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight.
On this episode of Cigars and Sea Stories, Mike and Juslin continue the conversation with Joe Trainor Jr. and Erik Carlson of the Oasis.
So you and I were batting around, Erik. You and I were batting around a few different stories the other day.
Yeah,
and
the other morning.
An interesting fucking story. And at the beginning of this most recent conflict, you get a wild hair up your ass and said, it's time to do something, right?
Yeah, 2003, this is after, of course, 9/11 and then Afghanistan. Just to give you a little background, I missed Panama by about a month. I ETS'd in November of '89. Missed Panama, and it turns out my platoon got ate up pretty bad. Had a couple KAs, a bunch of wounded, and then fast forward 1993, my company, Bravo Company, gets sent over to Somalia, the whole Black Hawk Down thing. So I'm like, if I would have just stayed in, I would have been at these places where I should have been with my brothers. And fast forward again, 2001, Afghanistan, I look up and they're showing a thermal view of guys jumping out of 130s onto objective. That's this clown here and the other guys from 3rd Bat. And I'm like, shoot myself in the foot. And 2003 came around and they were getting ready to go in Iraq and there was a build up to it. And they started the invasion. They just crossed the border and I was watching reporters on the news and they had no clue. Your typical left-wing reporters were out there, no idea about the military culture or what they were seeing, or no way to identify it. So these are the people responsible for getting information to the public and letting them know, and they have no idea what's going on. So I just said, screw it. Called up my mom, I said, hey, can you give me a ride to the airport? She's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm heading over to Italy. She's like, what are you going to do in Italy? Well, that was just stop in Italy, then over to Turkey, and going into Iraq. As I just grabbed my cameras and decided, I'm going to go over and do. I love photography, so I'm just going to take some pictures and see what the fuck happens, So I'll try and shorten it up a little bit. Got into Turkey, went across there, hooked up. Couldn't get across the border. They had closed the border, the Turkish border with Iraq. Hooked up with a girl from Voice of America Radio. She was a reporter. She said, if you travel with me for safety, I'll basically foot your bill. Because I was running on empty as far as cash was concerned. I had sold my truck and everything to buy my camera gear. So, I'm, panhandling, like this guy going across the country. But, so we wound up going back to Istanbul, and she said, her agency said, the Jordanian border is still open. I'm like, all right, well, you had the 3rd Infantry and the Marines were coming up from the south. The 173rd had just done, I watched it on the news while I was in Turkey, had just jumped into northern Iraq. So I'm like, all right, well, we'll open up the 3rd Front, man. We'll come in from Jordan. So we came in from the west. We crossed the border, and there was Special Forces guys at the border. And I pulled up there, and they started going through my gear, and they're like, who's got the flak jacket? Who's got the Kevlar? I'm like, that'd be me. He's like, who are you with? I said, I used to be 3rd Ranger Battalion. He's like, have a nice trip. Boom. Just got in these GMC Jimmys, basically a rolling Molotov cocktail, just filled with gas cans because there was no way to get there. I'm just like, we're going to get smoked, 5 vehicles in a column. I'm like, the Air Force is just going to light us up. But made it 500 miles into Baghdad. Every bridge was knocked out along the way. You could see all the airstrikes, all the vehicles. There was civilian buses that were hit and everything, bridges taken out. We rolled into Baghdad and basically got attacked by a mob trying to drag our driver out of the car because he was Jordanian. They looked at him, they saw Jordanian plates on these vehicles and said, you're a war profiteer, you're working with the Westerners. They busted out the windows and were trying to drag him out of the car. I'm hanging out the other window snapping pictures. 2 Japanese photographers and the girl from Voice of America sitting in the back seat like scared kids, just holding on like, what is going on here? And I'm just like, don't worry about it, it's all good. And they're like, and we rolled up on 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines. Happened to have the perimeter around the hotel there. rolled up on them, like, hey, dudes, what's up? And they're like, who the hell are you? You know, cameras hanging off me. I look like friggin' Dennis Hopper in Apocalypse Now. Like, what's up, dudes? And they're like, where the fuck did you come from? And I'm just like, Jordan. They're like, what? Like, yeah. I'm like, hey, how was the trip up? Of course, grunts. Then we're in the back of their armored vehicle in the Amtrak, and they're like, hey, check this out. And they're showing me, their home videos and everything. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool and everything. You got all these reporters from ABC News and everything. The Marines aren't talking to them. They're talking to Joe Blow, some idiot freelance photojournalist who has no way to get his pictures back uploaded. They're like, yeah, check this out, dude. I'm like, cool. But yeah, I went the length and breadth after that of Iraq. Went up to Mosul, to Kirkuk, Erbil, Shalakwa, all the way up north. Hooked up with guys from the 173rd up there. Ran into a couple SF guys doing some things that were a little hush hush back then. Yeah, it was an interesting trip, and it was basically after a time there, money really ran out. I was basically going off of the kindness of other photojournalists and photographers that were there, and they were like, okay, you're former U.S. military, so you can talk to these guys. And I actually got us access to a couple of Saddam's palaces, secured sites, and it was just because, having been, I knew how to talk and, talk to these guys. I'm like, hey, you mind if I bring these 3 photographers in? And they're like, hold on, call higher. Company commander says, yeah, you guys got an hour to come in and, so I was worth the money that they were putting up to feed me and, hang out with them and, pay for vehicles and drivers and interpreters and stuff as a liaison between them and the military. So, they looked at that as a good investment. So I basically had a free ride, as we went, but it was good times. Good times. Just
sometimes you get a bunch of camera equipment together.
yeah.
Go to war.
I had a film camera, and this was 2003, so digital was relatively new. I literally bought this camera like 2 days before I left. I'm reading the manual on the plane, headed over. I'm like, all right, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing with this stuff. Figured it out, and the card on there, there's settings for how fine you want the pictures, and how many pixels and whatnot. Still trying to figure out what a pixel was. And, so I'm sitting there, and it says on the cards I had were only like 16 megabyte or whatever, So I could take like at the max, at the best possible image that you're going to get, the largest image, clearest image, I could get like 18 pictures per card, and I only had 3 cards because they were pretty expensive back then. So I'm like, but if I set it on the smallest one, and I can get like 85 or 90 pictures on a card, so I'll do that, because I just want the key to shooting when you're in a situation like that is you want to shoot as much as possible, shoot everything, and just constantly, because you'll have to shoot 20 photographs to get one that's fairly decent, So my idea was more is better. So I just started shooting on these. Well, not realizing, being new to the whole digital thing, when I got back, a lot of the photographs couldn't be blown up big enough. They were only, they could maybe be a 4x6 and stuff because of the number of pixels, which, it's my fault. But it turned out that first trip to Iraq was just a learning experience for me, and I just wanted to be over there to be part of this. Going back to the whole thing, I had missed all these events. Being a big historian, it was killing me that this was going to go on, and I wasn't going to be there for another one. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going. I don't care what I got to do. And but if you have that will or that instinct, or if you just feel like something in your life isn't right, like the same thing with the construction thing, and you need a change in your life, sometimes it's just best to send up the flare, pop smoke, and E&E that, get out of that area and move on to something else. Just that quick, just turn the page and get it over with, instead of dragging on. People get stuck in jobs that they don't like, and you build that stress and everything, and it's not healthy. That was probably the best time I've had in my life. And a lot of it, I was alone. A lot of the traveling I did was on my own, and just being alone out there, no rules, no nothing. I could go where I want, when I want, get up when I want. well, I want to go see this. Yeah, I'm going to go there. You know, like if you were going to take the family across country and say, oh, the kids want to go see this, or hey, you know, I'd really like to go see the Aviation Museum at the Smithsonian. Well, that kind of bores everybody else in your group, so then you start feeling bad. You know, okay, we'll stay here for an hour, and you know, so you didn't get to see everything you wanted to see. When I was over there, I did what I wanted. You know, I mean, oh yeah, you know, I'm asking Iraqis, ran in all the guys in the Peshmerga, the Kurds up there. It's like, dudes, where's the shit at? Where's it? And they're like, no, it's very dangerous up there. I'm like, all right, which way? Point me. You know, and they're like, okay. You know, but the Kurds, and we discussed this the other night when we were talking. Just from my point of view, when I got there, the Kurds loved Americans. I mean, they would come out, every town, every village I went into, the people would come out because they hadn't really seen an American civilian since before the first Gulf War. You know, there had been, you know, you had the Kurdish Autonomous Region, but there was not a whole lot of travel going on there, not a whole lot of people coming up there. When they saw me there, I had people, you know, tell George Bush for us, tell him thank you, you know, women coming up and saying, you know, I pledge my eyes to you, you know, all this. I'm like, wow, you know, and I'm taking it, like, yeah, next time I see George, him and I don't have a talk, I'll let him know, everything's all good. But the pictures I took of the kids are some of the best pictures that I like, because everywhere I went, kids would flock to me. Because I had a pair of blue jeans and an old brown T-shirt, you know, and, you know, I got blue eyes, so I kind of stand out in that, and I didn't have the gray. My hair was, you know, kind of light brown, and these kids would just flock to me everywhere I went, and they must have picked up that I was former military, because in every picture I can show you, and I didn't realize it until afterwards, there's always kids giving the thumbs up and everything, but there's always at least one kid in every picture saluting with his hand up. So, and I didn't pick it up when I was taking the photographs. It wasn't until after, when I went back and looked, and I'm like, wow, they must have saw that in me, and I tried not to carry myself like that, but, I mean, it's something that doesn't leave us.
Correct.
That other people pick up. I had a guy at CACC, the security guy, asked me when I was walking out with Jasmine yesterday. He's like, hey, he goes, you were in the military, right? I'm like, and I had never, you know, I'm like, yeah, what? And he's like, oh yeah, my son was in the Air Force. He was a dog handler in the Air Force. I'm like, oh, cool, man. And I'll say, it's just, people pick up on that. And, you know, for veterans out there, people do realize, like when you walk in, I mean, whether it's your tattoos or what, but it's mostly the way you carry yourself, the way you walk. People know. I mean, which makes us, no matter how I've been out over 25 years, and when people say that to me, hey, you were in the military, it's not like I take it as a compliment to me, but it's like, oh, you know what? I really got to be on my shit, on my mark here, because what I'm portraying to people out on the street is their view of veterans, you know. So I'm like, I can't do, this isn't about me, it's about, you know, everyone else out there has put a uniform on. Mm-hmm. So
no, you know what, that strikes a chord absolutely, because that was one of the reasons why I actually left Boston, is because I really needed to put on a persona almost. I needed to watch what I was saying. Mm-hmm. I didn't need to change how I was dressing and looking and stuff like that. Yeah. It's just, you got to watch your mouth and stuff like that. Some of the sheep get a little timid sometimes, yeah. And you know, and so that's why it's like when you come here, it's almost like, all right, sweet, like you're
say
in the
what
club.
the fuck you want,
right? You say whatever the fuck you want and chill the fuck out. People aren't gonna look at you awkward like you got a dick growing out of your forehead when you say a phrase like, "Why are you looking at me like I got a dick growing out of my forehead?"
Yeah. I mean, that you can just see the way that how Erik conducts himself out here at the Oasis, you know. I mean, it's the same way he took off on that journey. You know, he's able to do, you know, what makes him better with his dog and everything. You know, he just goes out there and fucking takes it out on the trees and the weeds, but he knows what, I mean, I left for a month for Operation Keep Your Spanky. And our foundation is pets and veterans, and came back to adaptive sports, came back to fucking ranger only events where there's guys jumping in, and I'm talking to attorneys about liability and zoning, and I'm like, what the fuck? Ranger buddy, thanks.
All it takes is me walking this property and being like, I can do this here. I can visualize, you know, everything, you know, like this is what it needs to be. Yeah. You know. Mm-hmm.
You know, another thing too, it's in riding the 4-wheeler around. wow, friggin' getting some out in some of these trails and whatnot, you see that it's all gonna fit.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to put it. You see that you're not trying to do a lot with a little, because correct me if I'm wrong, it's 80 acres out here,
Yeah.
right?
And we're actually, the neighbors, like I said, are really cool. The guy over here doesn't farm anymore, that land over there, and he's got, you can't see it from here, but he's got the cornfield there for feed corn, but in the back he's got rolling hills, and it's all nice trees and open, like, pasture area, but it looks like a golf course back there, but eventually, we would like to acquire that land too, this thing, yeah, there's
Stalking lanes.
Well, you
yeah,
think about
you
it,
could
though,
do
you
it
can
out there.
Now you're talking my language.
Yeah.
But yeah, that too. But you can have your Bonnaroo out here, for veterans.
Fucking A.
You can have.
That was another thing
gotta
we
get
talked about.
Madison
Yeah,
Rising out here for you guys.
There isn't anybody that shouldn't be out here. That's
Hell
the
yeah.
whole point,
Yeah.
and that's kind of where my personality comes from. Because I know you want to ask me, and I know you want to lead into this whole jumping into Afghanistan thing. So I can
See-
it all
see
over
how he
your
shifted
fucking
that?
See how we
face.
transition? What a beautiful
see
segue.
It, see it in your face. So we'll just go ahead and jump into that. But that's where my attitude comes from. We're sitting on an extremely expensive piece of property that is none other than dictated through that mentality of how we carry ourselves. And, I compare everything to, my father being the Assistant Deputy Director of the United States Secret Service, Special Agent in charge. I grew up, living the Secret Service lifestyle my entire life. So when I got out and went in the military, there was only one place I was going. That was the Navy SEALs, baby. But unfortunately, I didn't have 20/20 vision for all the underwater activities. So I was like, fucking Army Ranger then. They jump out of airplanes and get to wear glasses. Cool. I'm in. And then, obviously growing up in the upper echelon of Pittsburgh, everyone's like, oh, whatever. Sure, we'll see you in fucking Yale or whatever. Like I could ever make it into fucking Yale. So, I ended up going in the military in 98, the delayed entry program. And I just remember looking at everybody that was going in the military that was under a Ranger contract, or RIP contract as we called it back then. Just looking at everybody and going, you all are just a bunch of shitbags. Like, you could just tell. And then once you went into basic training and everything, but, so through the nutrition rate of getting to Ranger Regiment, was just its own mentality and its own breed to where, before 9/11, our RIP class would start with 100 people and you graduate 15, 20 guys.
yeah.
Max. So you're talking about 3 weeks right after you graduate airborne school, you go right to RIP and it begins. That's 3 weeks of what is,
You
always
get out of jump
prepared.
school, and they let you wear that little red beret, and for a second you think you're the shit, and then, everybody graduates, and everybody else is getting their wings pinged on, and getting the cattle car shows up, and throw all your gear on the truck, throw all your duffel bags on there, and then the truck takes off. Oh no!
For
And the carrier, you run over to where Ranger Indoctrination Program was. Right there. Everybody else graduation, their families are hugging them and kissing, and you got our eyes just screaming at you. Let's go. Oh, yeah, you think you're big, Mr. Airborne? Come on, let's go. Fight, jump.
Oh, yeah, you got people quitting on the way there.
Yeah.
Inside the gate.
Doing
And as soon as they
duffel
see the
bag
gate
drag,
and they
yeah.
logs, they walk in, you got another 5 people that'll quit, just right there. It's just absolutely beautiful and epic, but gets you around that brotherhood that, that you're able to rely on. But, so I was in Ranger Regiment for 2 months. No, actually 3 months before I got the PT test to go to Ranger school. And then, which is extremely rare in Ranger battalion.
That's fast.
You
yeah.
have to be a fucking stud, obviously. Google me. To get to Ranger school that quick. And it came down to PT, which, I was a fucking PT god. And, so passed PT test, went to pre-Ranger, and then, I had my great Ranger school career, and actually graduated Ranger school February, I was 0201.
Yeah, how long did that take you again? How many recycles?
Goddamn mountain phase.
Yeah, I was straight through. I didn't have any recycles.
See this shit I was telling you about earlier I got to hear?
4 phases.
So much harder. But that 4th phase was compensated by recycling in mountains, so I got to do mountains twice in the wintertime, December and January. Which, if you know Dahlonega, Georgia, or the Appalachian Mountains, it's fucking miserable, and you don't get anything but more equipment that you can't use. You get more water, which freezes, creates more. It's beautiful. So I graduated in Ranger School 0201, which is February 16th of 2001, and became a team leader. That's when you become a team leader in Ranger Regiment, Special Operations. So I got my team basically 4 months in the Ranger Regiment, which is, rare. So, we went in a team leader course. We have our own little pipeline for that. And so as we're going, we're doing bilats, because you're on a cycle throughout the 3 Ranger battalions so that you're ready to deploy. It's called Ranger Ready Force 1, so you're ready to deploy anywhere around the world in 18 hours. Mm-hmm. Shit hits the fan, you're on the fucking drop zone ready to fucking jump into somewhere. Well, little did we know that September 11th would be happening, and when September 11th hit, we were on Ranger Ready Force 1, and literally I was driving down Macon Road as the first plane had struck the first building, and just like you see in all the movies, my cell phone rang, the Zach Morrison phone rang, picked it up back in 2001, and I said, hey, we've been alerted.
Alpha alert?
Yeah, and I said, all right, and you're thinking it's bullshit, because I didn't have TV, I'm not listening to the fucking radio, but Metallica anyway, so there's nothing breaking or anything. So I head back in there, and I'll never forget, I see Phipps, Rob Phipps, Smalley vet. He's in our company, and he's just fucking loading up magazines in a 9mm, and he's like, we're fucking going, bro. And, I'm getting goosebumps telling this. I'm looking at him like, what the fuck is this? Is he not take his meds today or what? What the fuck, Phipps? And he's like, shit's going down. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Anybody going to brief? And so we all get called in the war room. And literally, I had heard about what, a plane striking the building. They don't know if it's a, civilian plane or whatnot. We're in the war room now with all the team leaders and squad leaders. And as we're in the war room, the second plane fucking hits the building. And then we're like, okay, this shit's real. So then our CO comes in. And he's like, this shit's not only real. He's like, this is, what's going on. This is, gives us the fucking who, what, where, when, and why. And we're like, fucking sweet. This is our fucking job. We finally get to do our fucking job. Well, an hour goes by. We're on lockdown. We have a compound inside of Fort Benning that's our own little, compound. So now the gates are locked because CNN's trying to get inside because the posts weren't closed to try to see what the Rangers are doing. They're an hour and a half away, so now everyone's trying to see what the Rangers are doing. What's going on with this whole, planes flying into buildings and shit. So we're all on lockdown, but we're in the CP watching this happen. Our boys are in the back. They're all just, wondering what's going on, and no one can be on their cell phones, nothing, right? Literally, it was like 2.5 hours later. Here comes fucking SOCOM commander walking right into fucking our war room. And now we're like, all right, shit just got fucking even more real.
Hell yeah.
How much fucking more real can you get to the fucking SOCOM commander?
Got from Bragg to Benning, that's fast.
From Pope right to flew into Lawson, fucking like that. And then I'll never forget General Daly was fucking, I'm like, oh, fuck, we got everybody here. At fucking Seco 375, it's pretty cool. All right, what are we doing here? So they basically started going into the fucking breakdown of how we're going to fast rope in to this chemical compound that we cannot return fire at, but is heavily fortified. But this is what this is what we're taking down. And we're all sitting there just looking at each other going, this makes absolutely no fucking sense. This is the most heavily fortified property in fucking Afghanistan right now, right? As we didn't get told who's no Bin Laden, nothing. Fucking this is where you're going. This is who you're killing, but you can't kill them. You got to wait till they get this far away. Is how we're going to go in, and we're just sitting here
fix
going,
bayonets.
Yeah, we're like, we're fucked. We're all just sitting there like we are fucked. This is cool as shit, but we're fucked. Like we're supposed to literally run around like booga booga booga, have them shoot at us and like duck and dive, and then bound up there and make our way. It's like come the fuck on. This isn't for real. And they're like, we're gonna take off in the next 2 days, because the media's locked onto us. So we don't know as far as how we're gonna get out basically of this compound now, because now everybody's on Fort Benning. So that's what led into the whole progression of us leaving on October 3rd of 2001.
Battalion birthday.
Yeah, we were locked down from September 11th all the way to October 3rd. And in between time, the mission had changed 3 days later into Objective Rhino and jumping in. And mind you, I had just gotten a private from Rip, who's 5 jumps, and then he had never jumped in Ranger Regiment, and now this mission comes on that we were jumping into Objective Rhino, which is a distribution network, but training camp. Has a runway, so we're going to do an airfield seizure, take down the training camp, and everything. And I'll never forget the first thing that popped into my mind is, as now they're displaying the new mission right in front of us, what's going on. I go, this motherfucker's first jump is going to be into fucking
combat jump
into Afghanistan.
Yeah, just as a side note, to have what we call mustard stain, which is a star on your jump wings, is for a combat jump, and they're extremely rare. You had one combat jump in all of Vietnam, and then you had Grenada and Panama. So guys walking around with a mustard stain is a very rare thing, and to have someone come into battalion and on their first jump in battalion going to be a combat jump, you got guys that did 20 years that are just like ready to strangle them.
Mm-hmm. So they start breaking down how we're jumping in, right? And then we're all back in the same war room. And they're looking at each one of the squad leaders, and they're going through, okay, this is what platoon's taken down, what objective, what we're going to do as far as the setup. Who's going to be our support by fire, who's going to be this, who's going to be that. And as they're going through the platoons, I was 1st Platoon, Charlie Company, and I just remember them going through platoons as far as support, and I'm like, fuck yeah, we're not on the support line, we're on the assault line. And they looked down at Nash, my squad leader at the time. He's like, well, Nash, okay, which one of your teams is going to assault in first, Ligneto or Trainor? Ligneto had been in fucking regiment for about 8 years, and I just, I'm fucking not even a year in regiment, just barely over a year. And he's like, Trainor's going to take the team up, and I'm like, fuck yes. I'm like, because basically I'm, you're the first one in the fucking door, let alone everyone's there. You're the first one that's going to fucking get wasted, or smoked. But yet our team, once again, through training, you're the shit. So when you get called on to fucking go in there and take down the barracks building where everybody is sleeping, the entire fucking compound, you think nothing other than fuck yeah.
Hell yes.
So I remember just sitting there, and I heard nothing else after that. After Trainor, you're going up there, because I knew that it was going to go, I was going to go, but, we're still I blocked everything else out and just thought of nothing more than my fucking guys, but thought about how my dad had been in the back, too, as far as taking care of the entire country, because he was in charge of, once again, the Pentagon had gotten hit, and he was controlling the United States of America, and I was like, well, fuck, how cool is this? The fucking, now the finger's pointed, not at me, but, at this group of guys that's going to run into these fucking buildings, but at the same time, how do I use that capability to explain to my guys that your first jump's going to be into fucking Afghanistan, first and foremost. Secondly, we're running into the building that everyone's fucking going to be shooting at us from, let alone sleeping from, because we're supposed to show up and everyone's going to be sleeping,
Right, yeah.
And then, 3, most importantly, bring back all of my guys.
Put the mufflers on the C-130.
Yeah.
Coming over.
So I after we got the breakdown of the mission and everything, I walked out of the fucking war room and actually went and sat on the shitter and took a shit and sat there and thought about, once again, how I was going to break this epic fucking news to my guys. And before I got a chance to wipe my ass, I started hearing fucking eruption from fucking Seco, because all the other team leaders had gone in there and told the guys what we're doing. And so I get in there, and they're looking at me like fucking deer in headlights. They're like, what's going on? I'm like, check this out. So I go through the details of the mission with them, of what we're going to do and everything, and how basically you're on lockdown. I'll never forget looking over at he's called the hometown hero now, Carter. First jump was into fucking Afghanistan, and I remember looking over at him, and as I'm telling him as we're jumping, this kid's eyes they're as wide as they could get. And he's like, just staring at me, and I'm like, pick up your fucking jaw off the ground. All right, this shit's fucking, you're gonna be okay. Fucking everything's all right, but could be so fucking floppy. Harden up,
right?
Because the whole thing is that, once again, now that we had the mission 2 weeks prior, we still didn't leave for another 2 weeks because we still couldn't figure out how to get out of there without everybody knowing, okay, we're getting on a bunch of C-130s, we're flying, and we're jumping into fucking Afghanistan. So we finally came up with this game plan to fucking use civilian aircraft to take us over. Higher up had come down saying, basically, we found out how we're going to get us out of here. They're going to land in Lawson Airfield, pick us up, and take us out into fly deception missions to wherever we're going. And we're going like wherever we're going? Yeah, because we can't tell you guys because fucking technology now is becoming so advanced. Everyone's, got these new things. We don't know how to control it, so we can't tell anybody. So even the team leaders and the squad leaders had no idea where we were going because they were allowed out as far as, to go. So the night before we left on October 2nd, everybody was allowed to go visit their families and everything out of the compound finally, so everyone leaved. And it was like, boy, way to give that one away. I wonder when we're leaving. By the way, you got to be back here at 0600,
Right.
Ready to go. So fucking, everybody goes home and basically tells all their family about what they're getting ready to do, basically, because they all think they're all going to die, But how epic it is, right?
Right.
So we get on and we fly in. We get on. I'll never forget the fucking. We're loading up fucking. We've got all our fucking, M4s, our 870s, our fucking 9mm, everything, and just our BDUs that are when they first came out. We had the desert ones. That are just fucking. We're trying to be cool like CAG. Not have any fucks. So we're ripping our name tapes off. Just says U.S. Army. Then we're like, oh, what if we had extra pockets up here? So that's when we started sewing pockets on our sleeves because of our kit. So we literally came up with the ideas. We're like fucking going over there. We're like, oh, cool, that'll work. And then we had our magazines taped together with a little piece of the cardboard from the fucking ammo. And that's how we had double-fed magazines. And then we took the fucking 550 cord and had it upside down. But so long story short, we get on the fucking ATA aircraft, right? And this thing's fucking 747 or whatever. It's fucking huge, 3 rows. And I'll never forget the flight attendants. They're fucking all women, hot as fuck. But they're like, they had no idea what the fuck was going on either. They're like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, you guys are fucking, can you put like your muzzles like somewhere? They call them muzzles and shit. And like, so we get on there and we're up in the air for like fucking, we end up taking off, right? We're in the air for like 45 minutes and land again. I'm like, boy, that's fucking a good deception mission, not it, because we're thinking that we're going to get onto a fucking C-130 at some point, and, get rigged up, ready to go, to jump in and everything. Well, long story short, as we're flying our deception mission, we had flown into Pope Air Force Base, fucking goes down, all the windows are shut, and on comes CAG, which is Delta now, or formerly known as Delta, now is CAG. So they get on, and they got fucking beards growing out already, and we're sitting here fucking high in tights, fucking all shaven and shit. And we're like, what did you fuckers know that we didn't know? That you had your fucking beards grown out so long already and, looked like you fit in so well already. And then that's when we actually got the fucking scripts as far as what the objective looked like. Everything else was terrain models, was fucking drawings on the board. We actually got intel of fucking photos of what the fucking buildings look like. And, like, you could see the shadows of the people taking the photos and shit. And we're like, what the fuck? This is, like, they were already here before fucking, there's already CIA and, snapping these pictures and shit before fucking shit was going down. So, I mean, it's not very hard to put 2 and 2 together. So now we're starting to see the buildings that are there, the actual, what the layout is of the fucking rooms. I mean, fucking to a T from inside the fucking buildings. And so now the fucking flight attendants become like a fucking a high-risk concern. So now they're not allowed to get off the plane. They're not allowed to talk to anybody. So every time we would fly in and stop at a different country, everybody was on lockdown because now we had the most sensitive item, the fucking on target, what every building looked like, the inside, the layouts, the maps. I mean, fucking real time. So we're flying for fucking 3 days and finally end up, landing in the fucking Oman, which is a Syrian island. And they're like, okay, you can get off. And we're like, where the fuck are we? So they still didn't say anything. We get off, fucking unloading. This first time, I'll never forget, fucking saw a Jeep with the fucking, just so fucking cliche, with the fucking windshield down and a big fucking, machine gun on top and 2 ragheads sitting there. I'm like, oh shit, I guess we just flew right in here. Fuck. And that ended up being the staging area. It's still there today, but we went out in the middle of the desert right there, right off the fucking runway, and literally set up concertina wire and started to put up fucking GP mediums. And that was the beginning of it all. And literally we flew in October 10th, and we were waiting for zero loom. And that was it, and we were going in. We were jumping in. Well, so zero loom night, obviously there's no illumination. Well, the illumination period and all this Ramadan shit was coming up where, so we're like, fuck, we're going to end up screwing the pooch here. Because we can't go in there during Ramadan. We don't want to fucking piss everybody off, this, that, and everything. We're like, what are we going to do? Sit here in fucking Oman for fucking 5 weeks before we decide like another Somalia, before everybody knows we're fucking coming. So finally, October 17th comes in. They're like, hey, we're going on the 19th. So long story short, we were there for just enough for everybody that was there to know who we were. That we were obviously American soldiers that were getting ready to do something. And as we're going through our little walkthrough, tape-through drills of what we're going to do on the mission, the people that were there cooking us the green chicken, the orange chicken, and the brown chicken, that I never saw one fucking chicken ever running around there. All I saw was dogs, So it's like all the dogs, they were actually operatives. And we had given them fucking cell phones as part of our little treaty agreement. So we had given them the Nokia fucking little handheld fucking ones. So that's how they were communicating with what we were doing, what we were training on, what we were doing, what we were getting off a fucking airplane.
Who came up with that brilliant idea?
Yeah. So as we're getting ready to fucking jump, the day before the fucking jump on the 18th, I mean, we're sitting there listening to Jimmy Buffett because once again, you're basing everything off of not only what your mission is, but what had previously happened in Panama, Grenada, and everything. You know that fucking all right, we're gonna get shot down first. What's you plan for the worst, hope for the best, right? And you got a 3-hour flight there, let alone you're in already fucking towhead country. It's like you don't know what the fuck. We're gonna be able to make it there first and foremost, but secondly, am I gonna survive the jump? If I don't survive the jump, are you gonna fucking run in there? There's all these fucking what ifs. And I'll just never forget, seeing guys that literally were none other than so focused on what their mission was and what their job was that nobody really touched any fucking weapons. Everybody just sat around like how we are. We're sitting there talking about brothers, because there was nothing to base anything off of that point. There had been no fucking war prior to that other than fucking, Somalia. So as we're loading up on the C-130s, we have no RBA on because we're too heavy to jump at 800 feet. The whole plan is to fly in at 30,000 feet, drop down to void radar, drop down to 800 feet, level out, and then jump out. Well, if you've ever been involved in any other jump or assault missions, you know that first and foremost, the pilots are scared shitless, let alone their depth perception at night is one thing, but number two, they're just as fucking, on edge now as we are, so you're like, 800 feet's probably gonna be like 500, So get ready for this one, so we ditched our RBA, because we need to be as light as possible for our chute to open and literally just PLF, hit the ground and hope for the best. So as soon as we take off, fucking, all the lights are out, zero lume inside the bird. Well, they pass around a little glowy board, right? And it tells you what's going on the objective from them watching above. And I'll never forget, it's going around, we're literally into a half hour into the flight. Everyone's sleeping, all packs are fucking sleeping, just guard towers are on alert, which is good. There's a tank there too and all this other shit. So, and then a half hour later, fucking comes back around and it says, all packs are awake. All lights are pointed towards the sky, and we've been all RO&E are out the window. I mean, I'm getting mountain ranges over here, goosebumps. But I mean, I'll never remember seeing all RO&E is out the window. And so then you brief your guys on what's going on. Team leaders get the board and brief your guys on what's going on. I'm like, everybody that's sleeping? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, now everyone's awake, and everyone's pointing towards the sky. So now we have 2.5 hours of flying time left till fucking we get there. We were talking about everyone just being like, fuck yeah. It was something that literally, it'd be like, you would think like your average civilian, it'd be like, oh, fuck. No, it's like motherfuckers yelling and screaming inside the bird, fuck yeah, fuck you, fuck this, let's fuck them all up, fuck everything, and I'm like, fuck yeah. Now I'm sitting like right by the pilot because in order to take down the first building on the first objective, I have to land last. I'm the last one to jump out. So I'm right by the pilot, right? So as we're flying, I'm telling, we're getting briefed. Now everyone's fucking running around the fucking objective. Everyone's not just inside the barracks building, and we're like, fuck, fracture side. We're like, fuck it. We're going to set up a support by fire line and just make our way up there. Same thing's going to go. That's it. They come in our fucking way. Fucking, that's it. Because zero lume, they can't see shit.
Right.
That's it. Well, so as we're flying, we start, all of a sudden we feel a bird just start fucking the weightlessness, kicks in. We're like, oh shit, we're shot down. Like, what the fuck's going on? There's only 3 chalks of us, and they're all following. And literally our butts come off the seat, and we're like, oh, fuck, it feels good to finally be able to move, for a fucking second, because you're nut to butt fucking, just fucking packs. Right. on top of each other. 150 guys would fucking see 130. It's
Right.
impossible.
Right.
You know, just completely impossible.
Your legs are like interwoven.
Oh, dude, on top of
the
fucking
birds,
each other.
the bird's made to carry a 64 with jump seats in it.
Oh, yeah.
We used to take the seats out sometimes, and you would sit on the floor, and the next guy would sit right between your legs, and you just sit on the floor. You know,
Yeah, like in the back of a 7-ton kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're packed in like sardines on steroids. But so we're dropping, and as we're dropping now, we're like, all right, we're getting close, and you have a red light and a green light. You know, and when jump masters open the door, you know the red light's on. That means you're getting close to your objective. And jump masters open the door. So long story short, as we're finally starting to level out, we're like, oh cool, we're not shut down. You know, we're starting to feel that gravity again. And literally, the fucking red light comes on, and the fucking jump masters are climbing over fucking everybody, trying to get to the fucking doors. They open these fucking doors, and there's so much goddamn fucking sand coming in the fucking air. I'm like, are we fucking on like,
Are we landing?
fucking 10 feet off the ground or what? Because there's fucking just a sand out. You know, fucking sand's fucking just kicking up everywhere. And they fucking put their heads out the window. And there's a whole command system that goes with jumping. You know, everybody stand up, you know, hook up, all this bullshit, you know, when you're certain minutes out from the objective. And they're like, get the fuck up. Everybody up. Because what they're doing is they're fucking bombing the fucking objective now to try to fucking kill as many packs as possible before fucking, you know, we jump in. So they could see where the fucking bombs are hitting, see we're flying right towards them, and there's no 30 seconds, fucking anything. There's like, get the fuck up, get the fuck up. That red light's on, and you're like, oh, fuck. Everyone's trying to fucking, you know, we just got done fighting gravity. You know, so we're trying to fucking stand up, you know, and hook up. And I'll never forget it. Fucking everyone's fucking hooked up. You're supposed to be in a nice single file line, you know, and everyone's standing there like this as you see in the fucking, you know, movies and shit when you're jumping static line, you know. And there's people fucking hooked up with fucking their static lines like all over fucking the place because there's so many people trying to hook on. And I just remember, I'm on the first one and then there's 4 guys behind me, and we're the last ones out. And I'm looking down there, and there's people just standing there with like static lines like strung across the airplane. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. This is fucking going to be a fucking epic adventure. And all you could see was the flashes of lights, too, outside. So you knew that fucking, once again, everything's flying through your head, you know, as far as gunfire coming in the door. I was on the 3rd chuck, so there's 2 before us. I'm like, fuck, you know, they already shot down. You know what's going on. Looks pretty big. Well, so as we're going out as the fucking red light does the infamous fucking disappears and the green light comes on, I'm fucking smacking the side of the airplane because now you know you're fucking right over top of the drop zone, and you know it's the first guy's out the fucking door. I'm smacking the bird, fucking yelling, fucking go, fucking go, fucking go, let's go.
It's like a freight train. You start pushing from the back when that light comes on because you can see it. Because if you're in the back, you're one of the last man going out. If you don't make, sometimes the light will go red. The green light will go out and it'll go red, which means the pilots told you already passed the drop zone, which means you're going to wind up somewhere else, you know. So
Fuck that.
You just got to push.
Yeah, so that light pops into green, and fucking all of a sudden those fucking, that were a distance as far as the fucking flashes of light, were fucking just, boom, we're right there. White light, and all of a sudden I see the whole left side of the fucking bird just start going out, and that's the other half of my squad and everything. They're going. I mean, they're literally going. We're not moving. I'm like, fuck, someone shot in the doorway. Because that red light and green light, that's the only thing that fucking they can see from the ground. So that's the fatal funnel. That's what they shoot at, is that green light. So fucking, I'm like, fuck, someone shot. I'm like, so fucking kick him out, let's fucking go.
You either throw,
You know,
if you get a
that's what you
wounded
do.
man, and you got to either kick him out the door if he's close enough to the door, or the jump master and safety have to get up with a knife and cut his static line so somebody can get over him to get out. I mean, it's...
So if you get shot in the door, you just fucking kick them out. And that way, you know, you can do everything on the ground, you know. But it clogged up the line. Remember, this whole time, the further we fucking hesitate, the longer it is to where I'm inside the compound shaking bin Laden's hand. Like, hey,
Right.
I'm here to kill you. But everyone else, they're coming. They're just outside the fucking big-ass 14-foot wall that you built, you know. But I just so happen to land right here with my team right now, you know. Hey, you know, so all these fucking things are going, you know. And as soon as this is the only thing I fucking remember, is handing my static line off to the fucking jump master and fucking leaping out the door into a white light. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, that's it? I mean, I was in the air for probably about 5 minutes in my mind. I was like, that's fucking heaven. That's a white light of fucking, at least I made it to fucking heaven. I was like, fuck this. Literally. And then all of a sudden, I had the rudest fucking awakening. And that was the fucking concrete slab I landed on. And that was the drop zone. And it was just and I was in the sky for probably about, I'd say 10, 15 seconds, but it was 5 minutes. I thought I was dead, fucking the white light of heaven and everything. What they were was chafe rounds. The fucking every airplane had been locked onto anti-aircraft, so they automatically start shooting off chafe rounds. So as we're jumping out, now you have big fucking flares that are fucking flaring right in your fucking face, and it's like, you're all fucked up.
You're lucky your chute didn't catch on fire.
But what they were also doing is that they were illuminating where we were at night. There we are. Well, thank God that the fucking pilots got scared and deviated off towards the wrong fucking objective that they were pounding with blue 82s, 2 500-pound bombs at a time, and they were blowing up this other objective that was next to the fucking building. And they really weren't blowing up anybody on our fucking objective. They were fucking creating a diversion. Well, the fucking pilots fucked up and flew us and dropped us off like fucking 300 clicks from the fucking objective. We're like, motherfucker. So now you just illuminated where we're all at, right? So now you have everybody on alert, knows where we're at. So now it's like, it's fucking game on. We're running right towards your fucking asses, right?
Right.
Well, as we're fucking landing, the packs that were waiting for us to land were running all around the objective too, right? They're outside the compound. Now, I'll never forget the first one. As soon as I put my nods on, this motherfucker comes running right in the middle. And we had slap rounds at the time on our 240. And our fucking 240 got her, lights them up, and fucking, you see every pack 2 laser just go like this. Thump. Right on there, and I pull mine up, and I'm like, fucking no! And before I said fucking no, you see, and this fucking, and then everyone just starts fucking shooting at this fucking one guy. Right in the fucking middle. Everyone's fucking lasers fucking down, fucking, pointing at the same guy. And I'll never forget, fucking Straight goes, he's like, all right, clear them. And fucking clear shit. Checking for sensitive items. Fuck you. Ain't touching this fucking motherfucker. There's nothing left of him.
Bullet soup.
That was the first person killed on the first objective on, we're like, so before, you didn't have time for any of that to sink in. So now as we're running up towards the fucking objective, shit's already fucking, chaotic, right? So we get up to the rally point finally. But the very first thing you're supposed to do whenever you land is you're supposed to take your fucking chute, pack it up, and take it and run it off, a distance so the birds can land after the mission's done, pick you back up and take off.
You don't want to get sucked into the prop or into the intakes, yeah.
Yeah, and we had little leaflets that we had attached to them that says, fucking, we'll kill you, it's freedom endures, all that shit.
Yeah, that's, just to go back, if you want to see one of the coolest souvenirs left, they showed it on the video of when this actually happened, showing the video of the guys getting ready, and with the flyers, I don't know if you remember the flyers, that said, this will not stand. They had a bunch of different things on them of the firefighters at Ground Zero with the flag, that famous picture of the firefighters. These guys had them as flyers, and they were leaving them on the objective. He put his in his pocket and left. He still got it.
Still have it.
He still got the thing.
Very first piece of U.S. propaganda in the war on terrorism. Yeah.
Hell yes.
So you're supposed to pack everything up in your fucking chute bag, take it and run off of. So now you have fucking Rangers, like I'm running up to the rally point, that are running with their parachutes. Some still have their fucking shit on still, right? They just got their fucking weapons and they fucking snap their fucking chutes off. They still have their full fucking harnesses on. Others fucking still have their kit bag carrying it, fucking running with it. Like, where the fuck are you running to? And they're like, fucking taking it off the thing, Corporal. I'm like, don't fucking call me Corporal. Like, don't fucking say my name. Just put it down. We're not even anywhere close to fucking the objective.
Right.
So, as we're running up there, finally we get to our rally point, and they're like, all right, trainers start bounding up there. And I'm like, all right, support by fire, we're good? And they're like, we're good. Trainer, go. And I'm like, this is it. Let's go. And all of a sudden I'm like, I feel to my left and right. I'm like, wedge out, motherfuckers. Like, here, my wedge went to a fucking fire team fucking standing line like in fucking World War II. I'm like, fucking wedge out. 510, get the fuck away from me. So that flying V, we're all in a fucking straight line. So we're fucking bounded up there, right? And I'm bound. I mean, it's the most worthless bound I've ever seen in my life. I'm up, he sees me, I'm down. It's like, I'm up, he sees me, I'm staring at you, It's like, so support by fire, fucking, I'm like, can we get some fucking pack 4s on this bitch? And I literally radio back as I hear it go from ICOM to ICOM to ICOM, all in the back. I'm like, so much for silence and, sneaking up on the enemy. And all of a sudden, I'll never forget, the best feeling in the world. As soon as I fucking radio back, because everybody has a pack 2, so that way I can see your line of fire. And that way I know that there's fucking guns there, because everyone's staring at these fucking, and we just got into a little mini firefight, so we're still waiting. and they turn on these fucking Pac 4s, and they with the big spotlights and shit.
Yep.
And that fucking, oh my god, you talk about a fucking boner. To know that you got fucking nothing but 240 Bravos just fucking lined up right there, fucking, and everybody on that fucking support by fire line. Oh, dude, you want to talk? So our bounding now went fucking full throttle because we could see it, you know. And I'm like, fucking nice. So I'm like, fuck this. I'm up. He sees me. I'm down. I'm up. He sees me. We're in next time. So I'm up. He sees me. Trainer, get the fuck down. That's all I fucking hear. And so, you know, my guys are just right next to me. So I fucking slam him down. And here comes Spooky's big beam right on top of the fucking building.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going, literally, we're 25 fucking meters from this building. 25 meters.
Talk about danger close.
And and all I hear is Trainer get down. I fucking put him down, and I see that beam come down, and I just hear, I see the lights, thump, 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 and I'm going, no way they just fuck called in for fire with 105 rounds. No, there's nothing to fucking, there's no berm, there's no fucking,
Right.
nothing, you know. And next thing you know, it's you put your nods down, fucking, we're all shoulder to shoulder, you know, and it's fucking sitting there, and they're like, are we going to live through this? Are we going to live through this one? We're about to find out in 3, 2, 1, and it's just fucking, you talk about fucking everything and their mother, just fucking shrapnel, fucking building, body parts, fucking everything. They're just fucking hammering these fucking buildings, and we're 20 meters away from this fucking thing. I mean, you're just fucking getting rattled. Fucking, I'm like, we're like, oh, you just like, yeah, baby, yelling and screaming. You know, it's so fucking intense and loud and fucking. Now they start fucking laying suppressive fire and everything, and we're just like, all right, when's it gonna stop so we can get back up? You know, because we just thought it was like 1, 2, 3 rounds that we saw, and they just kept coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. Finally, I'm like, fuck it, let's go. So, because you know, you got your support by fire going, they're gonna keep going. So finally, they're gonna shift fire. You know, so fucking we stand up, I put the knives down, I go up to the first fucking door, and I'm like, there's still a fucking door here? I'm like, wow. You know, everything else is fine. I'm like, it's just like an outside structure, you know. Like, I'm like, fuck, you know, because I didn't have time to look at the whole building. I'm literally tunneling in on fucking that first door. And it's locked. So I'm like, fucking, you know, I do my fucking breach sign, and my saw gunner steps out, Huddleston, shout out to Huddleston, steps out with his 5.56 fucking saw, and it's a metal steel door. He's like, I got it. And I'm like, fuck no. I'm yelling outside the fucking door. I'm like, fuck no. No, because there's 5.56 just tinging all over the fucking place, you know, killing our whole fucking team, you know, before we get in there. So I'm outside fucking blowing this fucking door open. But I'm like, we're coming. Don't worry, we're coming. You know, I'm fucking shooting every fucking hinge off and everything. Finally fucking put a Bangalore breach up on this bitch. Fucking, you know, double-sided sticky tape, fucking everything, fucking blow the goddamn door off. We run in there, and there's the very first weapon that we got was fucking, still had a fucking hand and everything on the fucking pistol grip.
Nice.
A fucking Russian-made machine gun. That was sitting there pointed right towards the fucking door. Everything else was fucking gone. But that was fucking right there, right pointed. We took the fucking weapon and everything, and then these little motherfuckers started using their little canal systems to hop from room to room to room. I mean, the building was still intact. The fucking roof was gone, but the building was still intact. I was like, these are fucking some pretty fucking sturdy-ass buildings.
Yeah.
You know, it just blew everything out the fucking windows and blew some of the doors open. So now we're fucking, me and Nash and fucking Carter and Huddleston, we're running literally just fucking, forget violence of action or any silence. Literally, you saw your fucking, you know, your shift fire go from one door to the next. Fucking, we're jumping through fucking windows, running into fucking doors. Whatever we could do is fucking going into these rooms, clearing them as fast as we can. We're not even processing what we're doing. We're just fucking trying to take down this first one because we're flushing these motherfuckers out, kicking ass, taking names.
Hell yes.
So fast that we don't have time to process it. Because they're literally fucking, you know, the one person in one room, and then next team's bounding up and following us in. So they're taking care of all the fucking shit we just got done doing. But at the same time, as they're shifting, we're fucking running and chasing all these motherfuckers, you know, the ones that are fleeing through all the fucking bombs and shit that come in, down into their fucking tunnels and shit, and fucking just into all their fucking irrigation, all their shit that they had. So we finally get done fucking with the first building, and everyone's fucking just fucking like, now we took out the barracks building, which is right outside of the 14-foot wall that goes outside. That's supposed to be gone now from the 105 rounds, right? Which is now a big mound of fucking like concrete. And we're like, okay, this is a clusterfuck, you know.
Right.
We're out here. Here's all the guard towers. Everything's still intact. Everything's still there. You know, we're like, okay. And here comes the fucking other squad. First squad comes running up, and they start running in there in Glassburn. Fucking, and I, you know, go in the first warehouse. And we put all of our privates into one fucking room there, and we took Steckline with us, another fucking team leader. And we literally fucking cleared an entire warehouse with just the three of us, because we knew that fucking it was going to be the end of it, because that's where everybody was being flushed into. So Steckline would run up, and we had our guys pull security on us because we were inside the compound now. Until third platoon had come in, they started taking down the backside. So we knew where everybody was being flushed out to, right? So we knew that fucking, we're lucky, we're processing that we're alive at this point, And so we're like, hey, stay here, pull security, we'll be right back. We're going to fucking take out the rest of the things. And they're like, cool. So they're sitting there watching us, and Steckline would go up there, fucking blow it. Glasper and I cleared every single fucking room on the backside of that objective too. Every single one, just because we knew that fucking what was in there. I mean, fucking piles of sheets, fucking people, fucking hot plates of food, fucking all the above was there. We just fucking ruined their fucking party and kicked their fucking asses like they wouldn't believe. And we literally, believe it or not, kept the momentum, and we were on that fucking objective for 3 hours. Oh yeah,
wow.
And as a regrouping and shit, they're coming back. But at the same time, CAG was doing a mission up in Kandahar to go get Omar. So they used our entire objective Rhino as a refueling mission to come back. Once they got Omar, they were going to come back, refuel, and then all of us take off. Well, so we get done with the entire mission. You like how I just briefly talk about the mission there? We get done, and all of a sudden, fucking one of the 105 rounds on one of the gunships that we were supposed to get off had fucking gone off in the fucking tube. And the bird had to go back, so now we had to bump a chalk, which is the fucking worst problem you can have, right? Now you have a chalk that's bumped. You're on an objective where everybody knows you're at now, right? You just use it as a refueling station for all the everybody going back to the Kitty Hawk and everything. So everybody refuels, takes off, and you're sitting here going, okay, we just bumped one bird. Now we're getting on two. So you got the CCT guys from the Air Force sitting there in the PJs trying to land these birds. And then we're trying to figure out how in the fuck we're all going to fit on these birds. There's no possible way you can land, let alone fit the guys, let alone take off. It's too much fucking weight.
Yep.
So literally, we're on top of each other, like just fucking so packed, it's unreal, right? So the only problem is now that we fucking land there and the whole fucking country knows that fucking we're there and everything. The biggest piece of this whole mission was what everybody saw and what Erik said he saw on TV. And I'm sure everybody remembers seeing that, hey, we've invaded Afghanistan. Literally, we had a fucking videographer from the fucking military that jumped in with us just so that they could video after we got done clearing every room to show our propaganda. That was the most important piece of fucking anything that came out of that mission. So that it could get on a fucking airplane. And before we even came back to fucking Oman to sit in the chow hall to see it on TV, that's when we saw it on TV, is when the rest of the fucking America. That's when we had just gotten back. As soon as we landed, I'll go back to taking off here real quick. Sort of skipping on you there. So we all get on the fucking bird, right? And we're like,
Joe loves his storytelling. If you haven't
yeah,
noticed,
we're like, there's no fucking way that we're going to be able to get off the ground. Period. It's impossible. Like, it's virtually impossible to get off the fucking ground. Now we were way too heavy. Whole time we're going. And then all of a sudden, you just see everyone fucking going fucking ape shit inside the bird. I'm like, well, fuck. Everybody knew we were going to be able to take off to begin with. We're just still cruising down the runway as fast as we could fucking go. What happened was we got locked on again. So we had the FOs in there working with Spooky up there to call for fire to bomb all the mountain ranges again, as we're taking off. So we're like, oh, fuck. We're like, fuck. What variable, again, do we have to fucking play with here? And finally, you feel that fucking slow, I'm like, well, do we want to get shot down while we're on the ground? Or do we want to get shot down as we're taking off? So, we start fucking, just slowly fucking just making our way. And I remember what the terrain was. And I remember there's mountain ridges that are awfully high around us. So I'm like, we're just going to fucking slam right into this motherfucker, because, everyone's just trying to get the fuck out of there. So we fucking, make it up and fucking, we're flying back and, everyone's kind of looking at each other, it's starting to sink in on a 3-hour flight back, and we're sitting there and, one of my privates looked over me, Falcone looks over me, he's like, kind of hungry. And I had put spaghetti in my fucking salt pack, and I'm like, I got double-sided sticky tape all over my fucking hands, fucking face, everywhere. And I'm like, here you go. And he's like, that's one of his, biggest things he remembers on the mission, is me handing him that spaghetti, so, because he was so fucking dehydrated for being amped up the whole fucking time, and shit, and here he's dehydrated himself more, but, so we end up landing, and as soon as we land, I'll never forget it, get off the bird, and, we form up, and we're sitting there, and fucking they're like, bird went down in fucking Pakistan. 2 guys died. Stone Cipher and Edmonds.
Yeah, that was the.
And we're like, what the fuck? Like that was our QRF from the Kitty Hawk. Beco Bravo Company was staged off of the Kitty Hawk.
Did you say 2 guys? Or
2 guys. 2 guys. They got shot down in Pakistan. And
Yeah.
fucking,
Now, what they reported on the news when it first came out was that they were staging as a CSAR, and they accidentally crashed in Pakistan. That was a story that they went with at the time.
Yeah.
You know, but it.
the fucking Pakistani bitches shot him down, and fucking bird went down, and Stone Cipher and Edmonds ended up getting killed. The first 2 guys killed in the fucking war on terrorism. And it was like, literally, it was, I didn't know who the guys were, but it's one of your brothers, but it was something that was like just a fucking like, it took everything out of you. We just fucking, everyone's fucking just like looking at each other, and all of a sudden we hear this news and we're all just like, fuck. We had guys shatter their feet and stuff on the jump. Adams shattered his entire fucking ankle and shit and ran through the entire mission.
Yeah, but they had that entire mission. They did a combat jump on an occupied objective, and had no one killed.
No casualties.
I mean, that's
Unbelievable casualties.
It's unbelievable.
No casualties.
I mean,
and that's why it was one of the things where it was just, it took everything out of you, because it was like, that's everything that you had thought of before, that you prepared for, trained for, fucking fought for before, but it was mass casualties. There was always fucking, and then all of a sudden it was like, it was war.
Yep.
That was your first, like, hey, this is fucking war.
I mean, yeah, you guys know, being grunts, it's repetition, and you train your privates repetition to where everything becomes muscle memory, to where you can do stuff under stressful situations. And the thing that has always made the Ranger battalions so good is not, a special operations aspect or any special skills, or that we're some kind of fucking studs above everybody else. It's that once you get the battalion, the mentality is that we do the basics. Repetition, we do them better than anyone else. And any pro athlete or anything will tell you, I'm a pro golfer, and this is, you work on your swing, you work on the basics. Once you build on those basics, then you can start working on the other stuff. But if you have those basic infantry tactics and discipline in the way you move, you trust in that. It's gone. Generations have gone before you to give you that information. These are all lessons learned from World War II to Korea to Vietnam. It's all been. It's not. We just didn't make this shit up and decide to tell you, hey, this is how you're going to move on an objective. And when you see what these guys did and how it actually works, even though, like I said, first time in combat, his guys were, instead of 5 meters, they started bunching up. Natural thing. First time in combat, I don't give a fuck. You can have the tag being a Ranger or not. You're 18, 19 years old, and rounds are coming the other way. Okay, safety in numbers, No, spread the fuck out. That's why you have team leaders and squad leaders, to.
No, absolutely.
It's just, and knowing that, and the repetition, and that goes into civilian life or the business world or anything else. Why veterans should be successful in the business world is because we have that discipline, and we know what it takes to get things done and what you have to do to succeed. Where a lot of people coming out of the civilian world, yeah, they might have gone to college or taken some classes and stuff, but they don't realize that if you do the small things right every day, you're going to be successful. You'll get through anything, even when the plan goes to shit.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Yes, we're, just to wrap up everything, we're, the last thing I'll say about it is, once again, having that settle in, and then being able to move into the chow hall, just to kind of have our digression period, if you will. And then literally on the TV is fucking, when I can't remember who it was, got on the TV and, it was all over the airways and said, just wanted to let you know the United States Army Rangers had jumped into, and we're like, holy fuck. I guess that really was important.
I was pissed off sitting at home that they actually showed the video. I'm like, why the fuck are you showing us on TV? Why? And I understand from the national state after September 11th, they wanted the American people to see, hey, we're actually doing. They really weren't showing the SF guys that were working with the Northern Alliance. They wanted to show, hey, we're actually doing something, and this is what they're doing. I get it from that standpoint, but the operational side, of me said, what about OPSEC, dudes? I mean, you're showing the birds come in and what altitude, and so I was a little ticked off when I saw it.
Oh, yeah.
But I knew right away, before they even said it, when they first released that video, they didn't identify the unit. But I knew instantly when I saw that, I'm like, that's battalion. That's bat right there.
Yeah, and before the mission, too, as we're getting loaded up, you had majors, like he had said earlier. My 19-year-old or 18-year-old private that just first jump was into fucking Afghanistan. I don't know how many times I had majors and everybody else trying to pull him off to get a spot.
Trying to get a slot on the bird so they can get that mustard stain. Hey, you're not a trigger puller. You're in one of the S shops. There's no reason for you to fucking be down there. I need this saw gunner. I need this 203 gunner. I don't need you.
Right.
You can wait. If there's a slot, requisition another goddamn bird, and you guys all get on that one. But I need my guys here.
If you're not going to run in there.
Joe and I actually met, and it was the funny story is right after September, right after these guys got back, when they came back to the States, they were on a radio program in Chicago, and I happened to be going to work that morning, and I heard these guys on the radio, and they said, "Yeah, we're partying. We're from Charlie Company 3rd Ranger Battalion." Right away, the ears perked up, and they're like, "We're going to be at Murphy's Bleachers tonight. We're having a party." I'm like, "That's it." I'm like, as soon as I get off work, got on the Harley, drove up to the north side, got off, walk in. I had my vest on with my scroll, my tab, and my wings and everything. Keep on the pocket, and walked in there. And one of these guys walks up to me, and they're like, "I don't know who you are, but I like what I'm seeing." They said, "Let's go." Drank with these guys all night. That's when I first met him, but we didn't realize that was 2002, or like the beginning of 2002, and then I walk in the office and meet him later, and we still didn't know about it until almost a year after we were working it. I'm like, "Were you in Murphy's Bleacher that night?" He was telling the story about it, and so him and a bunch of his buddies came back to the apartment that he had, and they partied, and
Hell yeah.
it was like a magnet, because there was a couple Rangers that were older than I were, that were in battalion before I were, showed up there just to drink with these guys because we knew they were in town. And afterwards they went on their way. They had their limos and they were doing their own thing. So then the old guys just got together and let the young boys have their fun, and we kind of went off and did our thing. So it was a good time.
You heard it. Anybody who's listening out there, make your way out to the Oasis. Have a good time. Look up One Pet One Vet. And it's onepet1vet.com, correct? Onepet1vet.com. Go there, sign up today. If you're a veteran in need of some saving, go to onepet1vet.com. Get yourself hooked up with a dog. So get yourself out here, you and a group of guys or what have you, out to the Oasis, or a group of gals out to the Oasis to hang out. I mean, it's a good time. So don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Go ahead, leave us your comment. Your comments make the show. I mean, that's how we get the ideas to come out and hang out with great people. So, but yeah, click that subscribe button, rate the podcast, review the podcast. Again, we got to have listeners in order to keep the show rolling, so that way you can hear more amazing stories like you did today. So, thanks for listening.
I had a bad burrito for breakfast, but it's a good day.